Alrighty, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this series of tutorials for my CHS students. This task will be used as your presentation, so you really need to understand everything that will run through together here. So this is the test that you wrote, and I gave you the papers. So this is why I'm running you through so that you can use the weekend wisely. So we have the first question that asks us to find the coordinates of the midpoint, given that the line passes through the points P and Q. All right, so midpoint is just the average. So we have the point P, which has 1, 2, and we have the point Q, which has 5 and negative 14. So the midpoint is just the average of the x ordinates and the average of the y ordinates. So we can say midpoint, mid P, will be equals to adding the x coordinate, which is x1. We can say x1 plus x2. Then we divide by 2, and adding the y ordinates, which is y1 plus y2, divide by 2. And basically the midpoint will be, we can put our x1, we can say this will be our x1 on top here, x1, y1, then this will be our x2, then this will be our y2. So our x1 there is 1, so that is 1 plus our x2 is 5, then we divide by 2, comma, our y1 is 2, plus our y2 is negative 14. So we need to put the brackets this side, so negative 14, then everything divided by 2. So midpoint is just the average. So even here you can do it fast. So this plus this divide by 2, this plus this divide by 2. So here the midpoint will be 1 plus 5, that will give us 6, divided by 2, comma 2 plus negative 14. So here you need to break the brackets. So positive times negative, that will give you negative. So it's the same thing as 2 minus 14, which will give you negative 12. Divided by 2, then you can simplify this. 6 over 2, that's basically 3, comma, negative 12 divided by 2, that will give you negative 6. So what you just have to be very careful with is the signs, and when adding different signs and so on and so forth. So meaning that the midpoint of PQ is basically 3, comma, negative 6. Okay, so that is the midpoint. We go to the gradient. Okay, so we go to the gradient. So we raise this part here and just say, okay, just use here. So midpoint is equal to 3, comma, negative 6. Then now we come to the gradient. So the gradient with the symbol M is just the difference in the y over the difference in the x. Okay, now on the formula here, you just need to know that y should be on the numerator on top and the x down here. Then there is no difference when you write this formula as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, the idea is if it is 1 here, down here it should also be 1. If it is 2 here, down here it should also be 2. So if you start with 2, here you also need to start with 2. If you start with 1, here you also start with 1. So that's the general idea here. So we can use either of the formulas. So we're going to use this y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So here we've already labeled our y2, which is negative 14. So that is negative 14 minus y1, which is 2. Then we divide by our x2, which is 5, minus our x1, which is 1. So when we add this will give us negative 14 minus 2, which is negative 16. So here you should be very careful with the signs. This is where you might miss it. Over 5 minus 1, that will give you 4. So when you simplify everything here, the gradient would be equal to negative 4. So that is the gradient. So now if we use this formula, we would get the same answer. So let's try it. M is equal to y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. We can replace our y1 is 2, so our y1 is 2 minus our y2 is negative 14. So make sure that if the number has a negative, you put it in brackets so that it doesn't conflict with that negative. Then divide by our x1 is 1 minus our x2 is 5. Okay, then here, let me just drag this on top here so that we can see it properly. Or let me put it down here. I'll erase it anyway. So we'll do this. Okay, so here we can simplify this now. So we can say negative times negative, that will give us positive. So it will be 2 plus 14 divided by 1 minus 5. So 1 is smaller than 5 and we're subtracting. So this will give us negative 4. Then there we can say 2 plus 14, that will give us 16 divided by negative 4. So negative times positive, if there is no sign there, then that's positive. So negative times positive, that will give us negative. Then 4 into 16, that will give us 4. So which gives us the same answer as there. So there is no much difference which formula you use. As long as you maintain, if you start with 1 here, meaning down here it should be 1. If you start with 2, and so on and so forth. So that is about the gradient. Then now we come to the equation of PQ. So in the equation we have how the equation should look like. So the equation should look like y is equals to mx plus c. So that is how the equation should look like. And in this equation, we just need to look for two things. We need to look for m and c. And once we look for those, we are good. So m is the gradient. So m is the gradient. And we have found the gradient of PQ, which is negative 4. When we simplified here, it gave us negative 4. So that is the gradient of PQ. So we have m. Now, how do you find c? To find c, you get any coordinate. So remember the coordinates that we have. We have p, which is 1, 2, and q, which is 5, negative 14. Okay, so you can choose whichever coordinate here, doesn't matter. So I'll pick the top one, which is 1, 2. Now what you do is, this is representing x and this is representing y. Okay, so you replace back in this formula. Our y is 2, so 2 would be equal to, our m is negative 4, so we put negative 4 here. Our x is 1, so we put 1 here, plus the c, that is what we're looking for. So we simplify, this will be 2 equals to negative 4. So negative 4 times 1 will be negative 4 plus c. So we can transpose the negative 4 there. We're going to have 2 plus 4, which is equal to c. And when we add this, it will give us 6. So c is equal to 6. So we found our c and we are done with the equation. So y would be equal to our m we have, which is negative 4, x plus the c that we found, which is 6. And that is the equation of the line. So on the equation, just two things that you need: your m, your gradient, and your c. And how you find your c, you pick any coordinate. So if you use this coordinate down here, you would find the same answer. So that is your equation. Okay, now we come to question. All right, yeah. We come to question 2. Find the coordinates of the points where this line crosses the x-axis. So now, on your x or y plane, this is the x-axis, okay, and this is your y-axis, okay. Now, how coordinates work for counting, we count the y's as these, pa, 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 okay. meaning that at this point, y is equal to 0. Okay, in this line. So in this line, this is where y equals to 0. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. So in this line, the x-axis, y is equals to 0. And how we count coordinates for y, for x, for the x, we say pa, 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 pa. Meaning that in this line, where the line crosses the x-axis, so where y is equal to 0. As simple as that. So you get your equation, y is equal to 4x plus 15. Then now crosses the x-axis. So the x-axis is this line here where y is equal to 0. So you just equate y to 0. So 0 would be equal to, this would be 4x plus 15. So we simplify, we transpose the 15 or the negative 4x. This side is equal to positive 15. So we transpose like that. Then we divide by negative 4 and by negative 4. Then that will give you your x as 15 over negative 4. And here you can simplify negative times positive. It will give us negative. So it will be negative 15 over 4. So this will be your x coordinate, and your y coordinate is 0. So you found your coordinate. So your coordinate is, for x is negative 15 over 4, and for y that is 0. So that is your coordinate. So y, you use the same y, and x is the equation you find. So negative 15 over 4 comma 0. So that would be the coordinates of the point where the line y crosses the x-axis. All right, now we come to question 3. So hope you're copying that. So let's do question 3 together. So question 3, the gradient of the line joining this is 2. So the gradient is 2. So gradient, which is m, is equal to 2. And we have two coordinates here. So remember that gradient is equal to the change in y over the change in x. So remember, if you start with 1 here, it should be 1, 2, 2. If you start with 2, here it should be 2. Yeah, so there is no need to memorize here. But what you just need to know is that the change in y over the change in x. So this will be our x1, y1, x2, y2. And by the way, you can name this if you wanted. You could say this will be your x2, y2, y1, x1, y1. There is no problem in that. So as long as this entire one, you name it as 1, and this entire one, you name it as 2. So now the gradient is 2, so we'll say 2 here on the m. So 2 will be equals to, what is our y1? Our y1 is k minus, what is our y2? So our y2 is negative 14, so we put it in brackets like that. So over our x1 is negative 2 minus, what is our x2? Our x2 is k. Okay, so now we can simplify this equation. So we have 2 equal to k, then negative times negative, that will give us positive 14. Over here we have negative 2. So negative times positive will be negative k. Then here we need to cross multiply. So this will multiply with that, and that will multiply with that. So we can start with the 1 multiplying with this. It will just be 1 multiplied by k plus 14 equal to the 2 multiplied by this. So 2 multiplied by negative 2 minus k. So we can simplify this as 1 times k, it will be k, 1 times 14, that will be 14, equal to 2 times negative 2, that would be negative 4, 2 times negative k, that would be negative 2k. So here we group the like terms, so the 2k can come this side, so it will be k. So when the negative 2k comes this side, it becomes positive because it's negative here, 2k. Then the 14 can go this side, so it will be equal to, there's a negative 4 here. Then when the 14 comes this side, it will be negative 14. Though here the idea is we're introducing the additive inverse, but I'm just giving you what we know. So here, when a negative number crosses the equal sign, it becomes positive. A positive number crosses the equal sign, becomes negative. So that is the general idea here. So negative 2k will come this side, so it will be positive because it's negative. Then the positive 14, when it comes this side, it will be negative 14. So we can add this. So this will give us 3k will be equal to negative 4 minus 14. So we are, since the signs are different here, we add, then we get the sign of the bigger number. So negative 4 plus, so we can say 4 plus 14. That will give us 18. Then we get the sign of the bigger number, that will be negative 18. Then divide by 3, we cancel. Our k is equal to, so 3 into 18, that will give us 6. Then we have negative times positive, that will be negative. So the answer there, k is equal to negative 6. So this was the first page of the paper that you wrote. So this is how you're supposed to approach the questions. So I'm going to give you similar questions on this as your homework, which you are submitting on Monday.